Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Junkies. And today is a really special show. I'm excited about it because it's not about just buying or selling your home. It's about fitting real estate into your general life plan and how to do it. So it's important to understand that component, because you have this nice big asset and you can do things with it if you know how to. A lot of people just sit on it. I call it sleeping money. It's just sitting down, not doing anything. There's a lot of equity in a lot of homes in San Gabriel Valley, and people are just sitting on it. And this is the time where things can make a big change in your life. So stick around and find out how to make good out of your assets. Welcome to the show again. And we are going to talk about how to make the best out of the real estate you own. With me in the studio today, John Thompson. We know John already. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Nice to see you.
Well, the reason I brought John today is because he's an expert on something very special and dear to my heart. It's called planned trade down. And planned trade down is something that you can actually do when you have money in your equity. John, am I right or wrong?
Absolutely, yeah. You're talking about a lot of wealth people are trapped in their homes, and what do they do with it?
Absolutely. So we have talked about people that are trying to get finance to buy a house and so on. We're talking about a segment now that is pretty large in the San Gabriel Valley, and that's the people that had the homes for quite a long time, baby boomers maybe, the early comers in there,
absolutely.
And now are sitting on those assets, and there might be a way to make the best out of that they might not know about.
Yep. You're right. And so this planned trade down strategy that we also teach, I think can be very powerful. As you point out, there is, especially here along the foothills, there are people who have lived in these homes in these communities for 30, 40, 50 years and have grown up as the cities have grown up, and they have all this equity sort of trapped in their homes. We find that there's another common component in a lot of them. They don't have a lot of money, right? They have a lot of equity. They might have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in real estate assets, but they have no cash. So what do? Like I tell them all the time, you can't eat that equity. What are you going to do when you've run out of real money? So this planned trade down strategy is something that we do try and teach them, where they can maybe take a highly appreciated house, sell that home, buy a less expensive home to reduce their overall expenses, then take that difference and turn it into some sort of another asset that generates income for them over their lifetime. So it's a great strategy.
It's a great strategy, especially since it touches on something that I like very much, and it's that planning of some kind of a residual income. And the best one that I can think of is owning real estate that produces, that has positive cash flow. So there's a whole segment of that I would like actually to touch on here. But tell me actually, how do you usually go around, and what do you recommend in starting the process, and then the venues people can take in actually making these investments?
Sure. Well, I think now you're really talking about a team approach to helping people manage wealth and finances and those sorts of things. When you start to talk about an advanced strategy like a planned trade down, you're talking about needing a great real estate professional. You're talking about needing someone on the lending side that understands how all this works and how it affects them. You're talking about bringing in financial advisors potentially. You're talking about bringing in CPAs because there's tax implications. So it was great. It gives us a chance to really do what we do best, which is connect people and get people together to help a consumer have a better plan, a better life. That's what it's all about.
And that touches into something that I've been in a seminar last weekend, and it was so interesting that there was a differentiation between those would-be investors and the real investors. The would-be investors, the definition is actually the people that want to do it all by themselves. They want to flip and so on. They want to manage their properties and so on. And those that actually want to have their money work for them.
That's right.
They hire the team, the team works it, and all they want to do, they don't want to know where the property is or what it does, as long as the books are all showing money coming in.
No, that's right. And I think you make an interesting point between, again, those that wish to sort of take that strategy and do it all themselves. And I think both strategies can work, whether you try and do it all yourself or you hire or engage with other professionals to help you do it. Either one can work. I just happen to see in my 23 years of doing what I do, I see a lot of people and a lot of numbers, and I can tell you the people that have the greatest success are the people that engage advisors as opposed to trying to do it themselves. So I have this tremendous book of anecdotal evidence that you actually will do far better by having people help you than trying to do it all yourself.
Do you have that book?
Absolutely.
I need to write a book.
You should write a book. Why not?
Yesterday, one calls me like that type of investor,
Yeah.
and he is selling his own building and
Of
putting
course,
the tenants
of course,
in,
yeah.
putting the tenants in there. And unfortunately, you can see. I mean,
Yeah.
my daughter can see that he's putting in tenants that are not going to stay for a long time.
Yeah.
But they're going to pay a lot of money, so he's taking that in.
Yeah.
And then he's calling me up and asking if I can give him a second look on the tenant, so he doesn't make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's just like it's in the friends or whatever,
That's right, that's right.
But the fact is that it's so bad, and it's so good to have a team
Yeah.
of knowledgeable people. I mean, I'm paid to be this.
Yep.
My wife is paid to be engineer.
Mm-hmm.
She does engineering, so she makes the money to pay someone to wash her car.
Sure.
So everybody should do what they're.
I like into leverage. It's the idea of leverage. When you talk about real estate, oftentimes we're talking about leverage as part of this strategy in acquiring real estate. But I think this idea of leveraging your time correctly and where you're going to spend your time is really important for people to understand. And what you just talked about, washing your car, is one of these things that one of my mentors has always called it the $2 decision, right? You could go out and spend, an hour washing your car and doing the wheels and making it beautiful and shiny and putting the grease on the wheels and all that kind of stuff. Or you could spend $7 to get someone else to do it and spend an hour with your kids.
Yep.
What's going to be better for you at the end of the day?
Yep.
So,
that's what we work
it's
for.
leverage. You're leveraging your time.
You work it and you make
Yeah.
the money, and you're the best in that. So keep the other guy employed
That's
too. Now back to the investment
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
So give me a good example of something you had on the investment
Sure.
or the trading down.
It's interesting. We had a couple we worked with recently, Steve and Sue, and they lived here in San Gabriel Valley in a very expensive home, over $1 million home. Didn't owe a tremendous amount against it, and they're retired teachers. They're still working a little part-time, but retired and struggling just a little bit. They like to take care of their family. They've got great kids, and those kids, like a lot of kids these days, are kind of coming back and needing a little more support than maybe they did a few years ago. And they've tried to do all that for their family, which is wonderful, but it's put them in some debt problems. So initially they were thinking about selling their home, and they said, do we go to sell our home? Do we buy another home? What do we do? Because I really wanted to get to this approximately $800,000 in equity in the house. And so their financial advisor referred them to us, and then we sat down and talked to them. And ultimately, we realized they really wanted to keep the home. They wanted the place to be there where their kids had grown up, where there were potentially going to be grandkids very soon. And they were kind of worried that some of these kids, again, may come in not just to do laundry and have dinner, but maybe show up a little bit more permanently for a while until the economy recovers. Yeah. So they really didn't want to sell the home right now. So at the end of the day, we sat down and
that's a trend, by the way.
It is a trend. That's a story for another story, right? And Nick will get there. But anyway, so ultimately, we redesigned the entire mortgage plan. They were still worried about getting mortgage free by a certain point in their life. They're already at that retirement age, and they kind of didn't want to take on more debt. But by the time we looked at all the cash flow, the other car loans and the credit card debt and all this other kind of stuff, we cut their payments by about $1,200 a month. They took about half that money and then accelerated the new mortgage, so they'll still be debt-free in about 13 years, and they have the other $600 to spend on themselves and their grandkids, or their kids, whatever they want to do with it. So kind of a win-win. So that's really a way that someone can take their asset and the cash flows related to it and help improve their overall financial situation. And my guess is they're going to end up selling anyway in 5 or 7 years, in which case they'll get the rest of the money. But in the meantime, they've got a great situation for another 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, but I think what's most important about it, that it was given a thought.
Yeah.
It was planned. It wasn't done just because.
No, that's right.
Without any answers. So ask questions, get answers, make the best decision that you can.
And use that team, right? And use the team. So, and I want to make really sure that people sort of caught the idea of the strategy, because it wasn't simply about taking their mortgage and giving them money or something else like that. It was really taking their mortgage, the existing mortgage, and consolidating all their other debt. So they had no debt anymore, no credit card debt, no car loans, no nothing. They got a single payment. The payment was $1,200 lower than where they had been with all their other kind of stuff. And they're going to use part of that savings to, again, accelerate the mortgage and improve their lifestyle over time. So I think my big takeaway from that is that they were really considering a rather drastic move.
Yeah.
And because of the planning and the team that came together, they were able to do something that gave them a lot more options. And that's what it's really all about.
That's great. Can you come down to my house and kind of get
Anytime, Nick, no problem.
I got to get all these that crossed off and $1,200 in my pocket every month more.
I want it too, right? All the time.
So be sure to go down to our website. Of course, you can find a copy of this show on the KGEM site, but you can also go to My Real Estate HQ and click the little icon that says the Real Estate Junkies. You can find out everything what John thinks, what I think about all kinds of things, and you can find information on all the shows as well as copies of the shows as well. So with that, John, thank you again.
Thank you.
Hope
My
to
pleasure.
See you here
We'll
soon.
see you soon. Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks again.
See y'all later.